Hi, this is Todd the Wildcat Christopher at TacticalBoxing.com. In our last installment, the whip effect, we talked about our punch being like a whip, like the snapping of a whip. We're loose, we're powerful. The kinetic energy starts as an explosion and travels down the length of the whip until finally it explodes into the target, doing maximum damage. In this installment, the path of the whip, we're going to look at each individual detail of that. We painted it in broad strokes before, got the general concept. And in this installment, we're going to look at each point along the journey. We're going to trace the exact path of the whip. In our last installment, we talked about the basic path that the kinetic energy of our punch took. In this installment, we're going to get our map out. And we're going to trace the destinations, the landmarks. We're going to see the exact path of the kinetic energy that our punch is taking. We're going to break it down each landmark. We're going to look at how it behaves and acts and reacts during this kinetic flow, this kinetic chain that we talked about in last installment. So let's take a look at our map. So where do we start this journey? Well, the first leg of our journey, actually in this case the first foot of our journey, begins with our feet. As we said before, the energy starts in the ground, goes through our feet, to our knee, our hip, through our spine, shoulders, our elbows, and finally into our fists. But it all begins with the feet. Now, for any of this to work, you got to have good stance. We talked about this in installment 2. If you haven't seen that yet, stop, go back and watch it right now, and then come back. So, because none of this is going to work without a good stance. I got to have the good toe to heel alignment, as we talked about there. What can we say about our feet other than the stance? But there's something else very important as well, and that's what your feet are doing in this whole process. Should we have both of our feet anchored or planted on the ground? Or should we be on the balls of our feet? Traditional martial arts wants us to be planted on both of our feet. Many times if you do a kata or a poomsae or a form or whatever martial art that you're taking calls it, and you lift up your heel, then you're scolded. They say that planting your feet gives you more leverage, more balance, better form. That's true, but it has weaknesses. A boxer wants you to be on the balls of your feet at all times. This gives you maneuverability and quickness and the ability to make adjustments at any given time. Now, what's the weaknesses and advantages of both of those? The weakness of planting both feet is that it limits your body rotation so that you can't get that proper rotation. We're going to be talking about how important rotation is in the twisting of the whip installment. So it's very important, and planting both of your feet limits that. What's the disadvantages of having both your feet be on its balls? The disadvantage is when you hit something, cause and effect, it sort of hits you back. There's an impact back towards you, a push back towards you. And if you're on the balls of your feet, many times when you hit that resistance, it can push you back off balance. And you lose some leverage and some of your power. So I would advocate this. How about we have the best of both worlds? How about it be a both and situation? How about one of my feet be on the balls, on its ball, and one of my feet be anchored and planted? This gives me the best of both worlds. Having one of my feet anchored, I'm able to get that stability, that balance, that leverage, that solidity off the ground. But by also having one of my feet on the ball, where I can pivot, gives me proper body rotation. that gives me that powerful body rotation that I need to really get a good punch. And I'm still on balance. Okay? So I have one foot anchored or planted and the other foot pivoted. Now, which one should I have pivoting and which one should I have anchored? Glad you asked. Depends on which punch you're doing. For a jab, we're going to do a separate installment about a jab, it's so important. But for a jab, I want the opposite foot planted or anchored, and I want the same foot as my jab, my lead foot, on the ball, so that I can rotate with it. Now, if I'm doing a right cross, or just a cross, maybe you're left-handed, so just let's say just a cross, then I want the opposite foot, my lead foot, planted or anchored, and I want the same foot as punching, in this case the cross, the back foot, on the ball of his foot. So we're going to talk more about jabs and crosses, and their importance and their functions and their utility, and the tactics you can use with them in their own song. Suffice to say for now, though, I want the same side that's punching pivot to the opposite side of that which is punching to be anchored. So in the case of the jab, it would look like this. In the case of the cross, it would look like this. Furthermore, when I say to get on the ball of your foot, in whichever case of the foot it may be, I don't want you to be, I didn't say the toes of your foot, I want you to be way up here. Some people, when they punch and they try this, they go way up high and they're up on their toes. And then they hit and they get knocked back, or they twist, hurt their toe. No, I want you on the ball of your foot. I want your ball of your foot to be connected solidly to the ground, almost like you feel like you're getting a little push off of the ball of your foot. You only need to lift the heel of your foot just a little bit. Many times when you hit, and it pushes back, then you can just hit back down on the ball of your foot. You got the rotation that you needed, and then you kind of drop down and sit down on your punch, as some people say, sitting down on your punch, and you get the best of both worlds. You get that rotation, and that leverage, and that balance, and that firm foundation you need from the foot planting and anchor. So you just need that little, just a little raising of your heel. Okay, so next up the chain, or kinetic chain, or next up the length of the whip, is our knees. Okay, what can we say about our knees? Well, knees are very important because most people don't bend their knees enough. If you lock your knees out, you have no balance. You have no spring. If you lock your knees out, someone's going to hit you in the knee, cause a knee injury. There's no potential explosion for a punch, for a slip, really for anything. So bending your knees is extremely important. It can't be overemphasized enough. How important it is to bend your knees. So keep your knees bent. What can we say about the hips? Well, the hips are very important. We got to get a rotation. We're going to rotate into our punch. Rotate, rotational power. The kinetic energy is going to go from the floor to my foot, up through my knees, up to my hips, and through the rest of my body and so forth, and explode into the punch. This is so important that I'm going to say that in broad strokes for now, to rotate your hips, but we're going to paint it in much finer detail. We're going to do a whole segment called the twisting of the whip, in which we talk about the importance of all the rotating factors within the punch. Okay? Well, until our next installment, remember, the more sweat in the gym, the less blood in the ring. This is Todd, the Wildcat Christopher at TacticalBoxing.com, signing off.